Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference just kicked off in San Francisco, and while Tim Cook didn't announce a shiny new iPhone 6 or an iWatch, he did announce new versions of iOS and macOS X. The thousands of developers in attendance whooped and hollered at everything Apple announced, but what does it really mean for you and me? And more importantly, what could it mean for future Apple products coming in the months and years ahead? Apple's Developer Conference is all about software, and giving the company's 9 million registered developers the tools to continue creating new apps. While the company did roll out a host of new features in iOS 8 and macOS X Yosemite, Jeremy Davis, an analyst from Context, believes this is just setting the scene for the next big thing.
If you look at it closely, it's really kind of setting the scene for the next thing that Apple's going to do. You look at the announcements that they made, things like continuity, things like iOS 8 being much more like, Yosemite. All the different little tweaks and things that they're doing is kind of almost like getting themselves set up and ready for whatever that next big thing is actually going to be.
Of course, what the next big thing is going to be is the question everyone is asking. And last night, Apple gave some indications of where it was heading with the launch of HealthKit and HomeKit platforms.
I think that the whole health side, I think, is going to be huge, with wearables, and they need to get the back end of that ready for what happens with wearables. I think they have to get into that marketplace at some stage, and health is the one place where wearables will be successful. I don't think in other areas. And the other one was HomeKit. I think using your phone as the kind of like the remote control for your life, I think is one of the ways they're going too. So you'll be able to just manage your life from your phone.
While we will have to wait a bit longer to see Apple's mythical iWatch, the company is moving to bring its various platforms closer together, closing the disconnect between iOS and macOS X with the launch of continuity.
I think one of the things that Tim Cook was saying was about seamlessness, and I think that's the way it has to be. You've got to lock your users in, and I think providing them with that seamless experience, that user experience between the phone, the tablet, the computer, it just makes total sense, because then everything becomes much more natural. You don't have to learn something new with the phone, something new with the computer. So you're not, as it were, differentiating on devices. What you're doing is you're harmonizing the experience, and it doesn't matter what device you have, your experience will be the same.
Another major change Apple announced at this year's WWDC, and one which may not be immediately obvious to end users, was an opening up of its ecosystem. Developers will now be given access to the Touch ID system, users will be able to install third-party keywords like swipe, and developers will be able to create apps which speak to each other, something which has led some to raise concerns about privacy and security.
So I think they took great pains to stress the fact that yes, they are opening it up, because if you remember, the whole point about Apple controlling that ecosystem originally was precisely to provide users with a sort of a safe set of applications that were heavily vetted by Apple. Opening it up this way for the developers, they're being absolutely, I think, clear that security is their prime concern. They were talking about also on the HealthKit as well, how all that information would not be easily accessible in any way, because actually it's quite frightening if you think about it. You open up an application with one fingerprint, and then all of a sudden one app can open another app, but you don't need to get secondary authorization for it. The mind boggles about where that could go if they're not very, very careful.
In the last 12 months, Apple has been criticized by some for its failure to innovate in terms of new products, with people citing the recent acquisition of Beats as proof that Apple is having to buy in technology rather than develop it in-house. However, Davies believes that what we have seen at WWDC is setting the scene for a host of new products coming down the line.
I think that they've done a lot of innovation over the last few years. I think the time right now is to make sure that everything does work together, so that when they do move into the next big thing, they're not going to have any problems with interoperability or the seamless user experience. So I think there's innovation which is coming. I think there were some comments recently about their product pipeline is the best it's been for 25 years. I think that's one of the comments that was made recently. So watch this space. I don't think innovation is dead at all. I think they're just setting the scene for whatever that next big thing is going to be.
Thanks for tuning in, and for all your technology news and reviews, make sure to check out ivtimes.co.uk/technology.